Greetings, everyone. I am so happy to kick off our office hours the first night, August 19th, 2026. So, this is our website to the entire lineup. So, you can just pick your night. And if you have any questions, you can contact Dana Morse right here. Okay. So, one of the things that I would like to demonstrate is some of what I do when I teach. So, my name is Dr. Krista Togans. I've taught all kinds of classes, but I'm an electrical engineer who happens to teach math. So I've taught some pre-engineering classes, and on those journeys, I realized that a lot of the things that I learned in differential equations and calculus always go back to algebra. So I made a demonstration of how we can break down Cartesian coordinates and connect it to pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, all the way to calculus. So I'll show you a little bit of what I showed students. The objectives are here. And then what ultimately I love to do is make sure that students can create their own activity. So if you look here about the lesson that I created, it ended up going from y equals mx plus b all the way to vectors. And then what I had students do, let me make that a little bit bigger. I had students create their own activity. And then that way they can explore and so on. Let's see here. Now, when I was showing this to teachers, what I wanted them to do is to think about the connections of all of the math classes that they have taken, and then think about the connections and then create some vectors, which is something that a lot of algebra 1, maybe not even algebra 2 teachers get to do. Now, how I would do this with students in my classroom is I would have them log into their Nspire calculators. So here I have in my class, and then I would hit begin class. And then I would have in log in, which is going to be me. And then I tell students how to log in. Usually I do this on the board. So I just press 5. And then I usually use student IDs. It's so much easier to load. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to log in as Ann. So Ann is the username and the password. And then what you can do is you can see all of the student screens. And I usually click logged in only, and then you can see, and you can actually blow the screen up. So Ann can see that she's logged in. And then usually what I do is I make Ann a presenter. Okay. But I am going to demonstrate using the teacher software of how you create your own sliders with y equals mx plus b. So we're just going to start nice and easy. So now you can get to the graph by clicking B here. You can click down here where you have the U shape, or you can click number 1, which is what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to add a graph. We're going to do F1. We're going to start with that. And then we are going to type in M, and you have to put the times symbol in plus B. And then when you hit enter, the sliders pop up. So this is what I would want students to do. And most of the time, students are going to be like, what am I doing? Where is this going? They usually have a lot to say. Now, so the sliders have some settings. And if you right click, and you can kind of cheat because you have the teacher software. So you can click on the settings and you can change the values. So I'm just going to change this to, let's say, -7, and then change this to 7. And then you can minimize it. I'll do that possibly a different way. So if I right click, and so it's actually clicked on the actual slider. And so what I want to do is I want to move it out the way. Students have to do this a little bit differently. And I'm just going to leave the y-intercept be the same, but I am going to move it out the way just so put it in this corner over here. And so that's what I would want students to do. And then you can start to move your slider, but to me, it's a little bit choppy when you use your mouse. So I'm going to minimize it to 1 and then step size. Let's see if that fixed it. There we go. I don't want to mess around with decimals as my slope. I want to be able to use that parent function and show them directly what happens and how the slope is steeper or negative. Okay. So, and then we have the y-intercept, and we can move it to 0, right? That's the parent function. And then I would just want students to explore, and I'm going to change this as well. So I'm just going to move that a little bit. Okay. And then what's cool is when I start to talk about the y-intercept, right? Because what ends up happening is we get to the next parent function, whether it be the absolute value or a quadratic function, these things start to be abstract. It seems like when you use a linear function, they really can see that it's moving up and down. But when you get to quadratic functions, it starts to lose students sometimes. Okay. So, what I would want students to do is to play around with the settings, maybe even animate. And then what else could they do? Stop the animation. What else could they do? They might actually be able to think about, let's insert another graph. They might be able to start to think about, similar to the vertex form of a quadratic function, they could put m times x minus h, right? And not square it yet, and put those sliders in. Let me use the times symbol. X minus h plus k. And then you can just quickly start to show that what the effect h has on the linear function. It's a little bit different. And then k, of course, is going to move it up and down. So you can start to show those things, which is something that we don't usually do when we teach linear functions. And then, of course, you can always think of ways and come up with questions yourself to ask students. You can just have those ready. We can do quick polls. So let's say it's insert question, I think. Insert question. And then we could do, let's just do true, false. And then you can just ask a question, what is the effect that M has on linear function? Then you start the poll, because I need 2 answers here. What is the effect? We'll say nothing at all. It affects us of the line. Okay. And then I forgot to select the correct answer. Now I can start the quick poll. And then as the student, it pops up on my calculator. I'm not sure if you can see that. No, you can't see that. And then I pick the right answer, select it, and then I submit the poll. And then it tells me there's my answer. It's at the top, show correct answer. Oops. Okay. So you can show the correct answer. And then I even hover over and show my students who got the correct answer. Sometimes they really love that. So that's all for now. Till next time.